Okay, hello and welcome everyone to what I now believe is our 12th weekly virtual town hall for small businesses and nonprofits in Brookline. I'm Raul Fernandez, Select Board member and chair of the Small Business Development Committee. We are joined as always by our fearsome crew over at Economic Development, Meredith Mooney and Kara Bruton, as well as members of our Small Business Development Committee, Pat Maloney from the Health Department, who's gone from a periodic guest to a regular weekly guest now on these. Thank you so much, Pat. And of course, Kathy Bisbee and the entire team at Big that is helping us live stream this to make this available for anyone. I am also right now bringing into the conversation State Representative Tommy Vitolo, who'll be joining us in just a moment with some updates. I did want to just mark the moment that we're in. Obviously, you've all been following the news and understand that in addition to the global pandemic that we've all been dealing with and covering and addressing as part of these meetings here, we also have an additional ongoing long-term crisis related to racism and police brutality across the country. And again, this has been going on for a very long time. And there has been this moment right now where folks are in the streets, are protesting, expressing their displeasure with the system that currently is not working for everyone. And we've seen that right here in Boston, in addition to around the country. I've written a couple pieces about this that you're welcome to seek out, and we'll continue to be talking about this as a select board about how we move forward. There's some changes that many of us think we need to make right here in Brookline, and we'll be bringing the community together to talk about what those changes can be. But I wanted to mark that for many of you who are business owners who are already dealing and reeling with the repercussions of COVID-19, that for many of you, you're also dealing with other feelings, emotions, trauma related to the murder of George Floyd and of Breonna Taylor and of Ahmaud Arbery and so many others, and also all of the unrest that is associated in response to those killings. And so I just wanted to note that for some of us, there's trauma upon trauma that folks are dealing with right now, and just want to say from me to you that I'm here for you for all of it. So glad to talk anytime, glad to connect anytime, and talk this through and think about what we as a community can do going forward. So I'll leave it there, but hope to hear from you on that whenever you're ready. So with that said, I'm going to turn it over. We've got, I don't know if Tommy, if you're ready right now to talk. Tommy's giving me the nod. So let's get started with our state representative, Tommy Vitolo. By the way, we've got some really great updates for you today. I mean, just really, really good updates. Like it's felt like a while since we've had some good news, but we're starting to see some good news trickle out. And I think Tommy's got some of that good news for us. Go ahead, Tommy.
Thank you, Select Board Member Fernandez. So as you may or may not know, the House of Representatives has been meeting virtually using cutting-edge 20th century technology. We have telephone conference calls in pods of 20, and we just relay our votes in. We listen to the debate over the telephone. It's functional, and it goes at about the right speed for an august body like ours. And so yesterday we met and we took up one bill and began taking up the second. The second bill that we haven't finished is about voting, and I'll leave that for another forum. But the bill we did pass is H 4767, known as the Restaurant Relief Bill. Now, we've passed it in the House. It still has to get through the Senate. They have to pass identical language, and then it needs a governor's signature or a veto override, right? Schoolhouse Rocks is still in effect. But here's what we did. There are 4 distinct components of this bill in no particular order. Number 1, restaurants delivering or selling food to go can now, if this bill becomes law, sell cocktails to go. There's a significant number of regulations about how that works. So don't go filling up like a big gulp pina colada and handing it to a customer. You got to get this right. And in fact, of the four components, this is the one that worries me the most because I'm not so sure. I could be wrong. I don't see this being a huge driver of sales, and I see it being a tremendous opportunity to lose your liquor license. So please be really careful with this one. Make good use of it. Do it right. Make sure you understand the rules and regs. Enough said about cocktails to go. Number two, we are capping the fees associated with Uber Eats and all of the other delivery services at 15%. As you know, they've been charging as much as 30%. We, the body, settled on 15% as a reasonable maximum. I have some concern that they may just leave the state. We'll see. And if that happens, we'll figure out what to do about that. So we can't require that these delivery services continue to sell their product at 15%, but we can prevent them from charging more, and that's what this bill does. We have expedited the reopening process for outdoor dining permits for phase 2. And to give a little more description around this, what we've really tried to do is keep the state government out of it and let the local government handle the details. So for example, if you have a license to sell alcohol indoors, but you don't outdoors because you never imagined that people wouldn't be allowed to sit inside, you don't get to just start doing it. There's still a process, but you don't have to wait 6 weeks on the ABCC, right? So all of, if I understand the bill correctly, and again, if it survives intact, these changes are designed to let Raul and his 4 fellow select board members, in conjunction with the planning department and others, work this out on a case-by-case local basis. We want restaurants to operate safely, and it is believed at this time or very soon that includes outdoor dining. The legislature recognizes that that involves a bunch of different kinds of permits and changes to operating. We're going to rely on the health department and the planning department and the select boards to do their job well. These, by the way, all of these sunset. None of these changes are permanent. They actually sunset at slightly different times, but for the sake of this conversation, know that they will be available through the fall and into the winter, right? So when you're thinking about outdoor dining, you've got the entire season at the very least. And finally, we have removed the late penalties and incurred interest on non-payment of meals tax for restaurants that are unable to pay going forward for the remainder of the year. So you still got to collect that tax. You still have to ultimately pay that tax. But we've removed our interest and penalties associated with deferring the payment. And so this is a little bit of money. This isn't a ton of money, but the hope is that the combination of allowing increased sales and giving you a little bit of a break on the taxes and fees in combination will really help restaurants that have closed their doors open up again, even if it's only 6 tables outside, right? Just try to get back into the flow of things, get things moving again, and do it in a safe way. So again, it's H4767. The 4 components are cocktails to go, delivery fees capped at 15%, allowing really local control over getting restaurants to serve outside, including serving alcohol, and removing late penalties and incurred interest on meals tax payments through the rest of the year. It's got to go to and through the Senate. Of course, our senator is Cindy Cream. I suspect she'd be happy to support this, but I don't want to speak for her. And I suspect the governor will support this as well. So I think this will move relatively quickly. My hope is that planning and other town government starts thinking about this now and is sort of ready. And frankly, speaking personally, I hope that the select board thinks about how to widen sidewalks further and allow for more space on sidewalks for commerce of all kinds, consistent with the governor's orders. And if that means helping customers figure out to park on side streets and blocks away in residential neighborhoods so that we can use the parking for a sidewalk and the sidewalk for retail, I think that's a compromise worth looking into for this year. I think that's a way to be supportive of our community and our well-being in a way that's sensible. But that's a local government decision, and I encourage you to decide accordingly. Happy to answer any questions if I can. I'm not an expert on the law that isn't even a law yet, but I'm happy to at least hear your concerns and go from there.
Yeah, folks, if you can actually type your questions in using the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen, that'd be great. And to the representative's point about widening sidewalks, absolutely in support of that. I know town staff are working on some plans that'll come before the select board relatively soon. And then we'll have a public discussion about doing that. But certainly, this board made the decision in the middle of the pandemic to widen certain sidewalks because we knew that there were people for essential reasons who needed to get to work that were called into service during this time. First responders, healthcare workers, grocery workers, and others, and even folks like yourselves that were still able to operate businesses needed to be out there and deserve to have the space to get, especially in our busy commercial areas, to where you needed to be. This is even more the case now that we've moved from a stay-home advisory to a safer-at-home advisory, and essentially we are opening businesses, which means that people are in some ways invited to go out and patronize your businesses right now. And I certainly think that it makes complete sense for us to provide more space for people to be able to do that safely. So I'm excited for that to come before the select board very soon. It looks like
I'll just put in a plug before I forget. This afternoon at 2:30 on Brookline Interactive, on my weekly show, I'm going to have a remarkable guest, really the biggest fish we've landed. We've had some pretty big fish, but this week we've got the executive director of the Brookline Chamber of Commerce. Maybe you've heard of her, Debbie Goodmiller. She's going to be on the show at 2:30 today. I encourage you to tune in to Brookline Interactive. You can watch it at 2:30, or you can watch it sometime in the future. We're going to be talking about how local businesses in Brookline have responded and how are they going to move ahead. We're going to talk about H 4767. We're happy to talk about other things. So send me a text, send me an email, talk to Debbie, say, hey, why don't you talk about this? And we probably will. So that's at 2:30 today. We'd love to see you.
Great. I do see one question here. I don't know if this is a Tommy question or a Kara question, but someone says, thank you. Do we need to apply for a special permission for outdoor seats?
Not anonymously. The answer is that I don't know. I don't know who this is. I don't know what the context is. Every summer we do a group package with the Coolidge Corner Merchants Association to put outdoor tables and chairs, which is awesome. So you could talk to David Lashinsky. You can raise your hand, can contact David to get as part of that. And I can let you know that we're streamlining everything that we do. So rather, even for an individual restaurant, if you want to have seats outside of the sidewalk, we're talking about reducing the review time. So I think we just need to know more about who you are and what you've got in mind. But if it's outdoor seating for the general public, definitely get in touch with the Coolidge Corner Merchants Association. And if you are a restaurant that has not had outdoor seating before, email Tiffany Souza at the Select Board's office. She's collecting applications as we speak.
Great. So we'll see if any other questions come through. Representative Vitolo, glad that the House is stepping up here and making some really much needed changes, and we hope that the Senate follows suit and that the governor is able to support these changes too. So thank you.
And Select Board member, don't forget to take credit where credit is due. The Select Board lobbied me on several of these changes a number of weeks ago, and that was helpful to me bringing it to committee chairs and leadership saying, hey, this is something our community has thought about and really wants to do. So thank you to the Select Board for chiming in several weeks ago on exactly this issue.
Appreciate that, and I'll pass that along to the group. Meredith, I think you're up now.
Good morning. Meredith Mooney, Economic Development Planner. We've reviewed some of what I'm about to talk about extensively over the past 11 meetings that we've had together. But I am going to pop in the chat here some information and links for any first-time attendees for these meetings. And I have just one more update I'm going to pop in the chat. So I'm really glad Representative Vitolo was able to join us this morning. I think that the update about what's happening at the state legislature dovetails very nicely with some of the updates that we are planning on delivering today. But just to quickly review about what was placed in the chat, as many of you know, Economic Development has been updating a business resources page. There's a link in the chat box here. We try to update it as frequently as possible. It's updated with new information, which is developing all the time, at least a couple times a week at this point. We're also encouraging everyone to subscribe to our business news flash. A lot of important updates and information we're trying to push that out through the news flash notification. So if you haven't done so already, you can click the link in the chat box and register for those updates. My new favorite hobby is walking around our commercial areas and taking pictures of our beautiful #Brookline storefront signs, which were designed by Annika Serene, who's one of our Small Business Development Committee members and a Brookline resident, and they're beautiful. We're also in the process of developing 2 new sign designs, one for curbside pickup and another for open by appointment only. So if you have not requested a sign yet, or if you have a sign and you're very happy with it, but you see some of your business neighbors don't have signs, please forward them the information and encourage them to request a sign, and we'll get one to them as soon as possible. Also, many thanks again to Lucia from Tiny Hanger for thinking of the idea for that initiative in the first place. So we have a business impact poll, which has been live for the past several weeks. We're just trying to gather updates about some more concrete data about how your business is being impacted by COVID-19 so that the town can respond with resources and support wherever we can and where it's most needed. So there's a link to that in the chat box as well. Delivery only parking signs. Last week or the week before, we did a poll through Zoom where we just gauged people's feelings about the delivery only parking signs, which have been up for 2.5 months at this point. Have they been helpful to your business? Does it make sense to keep them in our commercial areas? And the feedback that we receive, which we relate to our transportation department, is that yes, it has been helpful to my business, my restaurant, and it seems appropriate to keep them up at least through the end of June or perhaps longer. So we relayed that to transportation staff. They're going to share that with the transportation board. I also included a link to the upcoming transportation board agenda for this Monday. Usually when we tell you about upcoming public meetings, there's one agenda item that's relevant to the business community. I think that this transportation board meeting is unique in that basically all of the agenda items that they're considering are related to business issues. So in addition to discussing whether or not to extend the delivery only signs, they'll also be talking about the Open Streets Initiative and maybe expanding that, which Representative Vitolo referenced earlier. There's also going to be a discussion about raising the townwide parking meter fees, which I know is something that our business organizations have talked about with transportation staff, have already submitted some public comments to the Transportation Board for consideration. So if you're interested in tuning in, there's a link to that agenda in the chat box. And if you're interested in submitting comment, if you're not able to participate, there are also instructions about how you can do that and that agenda as well. So that's just a quick recap. I'm going to turn it over very quickly to Debbie Miller, Executive Director of the Brookline Chamber and star guest on Rep Vitolo show later today for a couple updates about business-related events the Chamber's hosting. Take it away, Debbie.
Thank you. So we are going to be hosting an ADA compliant website webinar. Thanks to actually Ann Myers, we have Paul Sainer on that panel, as well as Ben Bradley and Deborah Bradley, who are both experts on the topic. So that's going to be coming up. So check our website and put that in your calendar. We also have a couple of chamber chats coming up. And we have a couple of other events in the works. So as soon as we have final information on those, we'll get them out too.
Debbie, if I can also say, I know that you know, I saw an email recently, and I'm working on my membership. There's a non-business
Yes.
chamber membership, right? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Thank you so much for bringing that up. So yesterday, the chamber launched a new membership. People have been asking us what they can do to help support the business community and the chamber. So we came up with a non-business, pro-business membership. It's $50. It entitles members to complimentary coffees and after hours, either online or eventually in person, our newsletter, and we're certainly open to any other perks that we can offer. And we love it that people want to reach out and help. And so if they are interested, they can go to our website now. We're all set up for it, and they can be a part of the chamber.
Great. I'll get it done today.
Thank you.
Thanks, Deb.
Right. And then one other chamber related item I'm including in the chat. Debbie was able to get the survey results that were conducted by the Chamber of Commerce or some sort of business advocacy organization up in Beverly, Mass. And so you can view those results, the consumer results, through the link in the chat. If you are interested in a Brookline consumer survey that along these same lines, please let Debbie know. If we could maybe just do a quick show of hands on Zoom, so you can hit the raise hand feature just to indicate whether or not you would be interested in that information for a Brookline specific audience. So 1, 2, 3, 4. All right. So we have a handful of participants who would be interested in that survey. So, all right. Thank you. Can lower hands. So Debbie has that feedback. So if the chamber decides to move forward with that survey, let us know.
Thank you.
Okay, great. So other updates. Earlier this week, Governor Baker on Monday signed an executive order adding additional business types to the phase 2, 3, and 4, and also allowed phase 2 businesses, including retail, to begin preparations to safely resume operations when phase 2 officially begins. So we expect that the governor on Saturday will be making the announcement about the phase 2 start date. The earliest that phase 2 could begin, based on that 3-week window between phases that was outlined in the state's reopening plan, the earliest that could be would be on Monday, June 8th. So stay tuned for updates. Again, we'll be sending out updates and information through the Business News Flash. Another plug for the Business News Flash. And the 2 big ticket items for updates today would be tomorrow, the town is going to be opening applications for our small business relief grant program. We've talked about this a lot over the past several virtual town hall meetings. The background on this grant program is that through the CARES Act, the town received some additional funding through the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, also known as HUD, to have additional supplemental community development block grant funds, which are known as CDBG funds. And the select board allocated these additional CDBG funds to different initiatives across town, $200,000 of which was allocated towards economic development support activities. So we have developed a grant program for small businesses using that $200,000, and have been working with our community development colleagues on developing the criteria for that program. There's been a lot of back and forth with different departments in town. There's been back and forth with the town and the federal government. So we finally got the all clear. We're moving forward with the program. It's very exciting. We know that we've been discussing this for several weeks, so I'm sure people are excited to finally fill out an application. We are finalizing the program guidelines, which we're hoping will be very detailed and comprehensive, and will also include a scoring rubric, just so we're trying to be as transparent as possible about how we'll be allocating that money, because $200,000, it's certainly something, and it will be helpful to lots of businesses. But it's a limited resource. So the grant program, so grants are between $5,000 and $15,000, and they can be used for working capital expenses. So to align with the funder criteria for this program, the Community Development Block Grant Program, one of the main purposes of that is to support low to moderate income people. And in this case, there are requirements for applicants that they qualify as low to moderate income based on the federal guidelines. And there are kind of two categories that grant recipients could fall into. The grant could be for a micro enterprise business, so it would be a business with 5 or fewer employees, or there would be sort of the job creation route. And the criteria for those are slightly different, and those will be outlined in the guidelines. So guidelines application are being finalized. Hopefully they'll be available no later than 5 p.m. tomorrow. Our goal is to make it available sooner in the day. And we think that in terms of the grant distribution process, we felt strongly that this not be a first come, first served situation. And so we're developing the rubric so that we can also try to distribute these grants, in terms of where the greatest need is. And our cycle will be, grants will open on Friday. Every Tuesday, you'll submit your grant application through a SurveyMonkey portal. And then you'll hear back from economic development staff confirming that we've received your application. And then we'll do sort of an initial assessment to make sure that you meet the criteria, minimum eligibility requirements for the grant. And then if that's the case, you'll hear from us again, and we're going to require additional documentation. So this is federal grant money. There's a lot of additional documentation, supporting documentation required. So to save some paper shuffling and being respectful of everyone's time, we're kind of, phasing it out so that people aren't gathering documents if they aren't going to meet the minimum eligibility requirements. So I think the earliest notification for the first round of grants would probably be Tuesday, June 16th. And then we will award grants to applications that receive the highest scoring criteria. And then any remaining applications will be rolled over into the following week to be assessed with the next round of applications. So I'm sure people have questions about this. I had every hope of putting together a beautiful PowerPoint presentation that would clearly outline this program that I could refer to in this presentation, and it just did not end up happening this week. But I'm happy to answer any questions that people might have. Q&A. Sue Stein asked about any retail updates. The only specific retail update was about the governor's announcement and possible start of phase 2 next week. So. All right, well, as you collect your thoughts or formulate your questions about the grant program, I will move on to the next update, which is about outdoor seating. So we have convened several departments in town that are involved with figuring out a local process for approving outdoor seating. And so our initial conclusion, and Pat and Kara can jump in as well, restaurants that already have approval through their common victualers license for outdoor seating, once phase 2 resumes, will be able to put out their table and chairs and provide outdoor service. But we're asking that everyone develop a revised seating chart or seating diagram that complies with the state social distancing requirements. And you don't have to submit that to the town, but it is part of the documentation that public health inspectors will be looking for if and when they do spot checks. And Pat can answer more questions about that. In terms of other restaurants who are looking to provide outdoor seating that don't that aren't already approved for that, and other potential outdoor seating uses for retail. We are in the process of developing a streamlined process for granting approval for that. So we're hoping to have more concrete updates on that at next week's virtual town hall meeting. But it is something that we're working on. We understand the urgency behind it. And we're also trying to be thoughtful about, as we're going through this process, are there opportunities for us to streamline sort of our existing processes so that this will be an easier process going forward. I'm going to pop some links into the chat box about outdoor seating. If you have any questions and would like to apply for outdoor seating, you can certainly get in touch with the town senior licensing clerk, Tiffany Souza. If you have any creative ideas about using outdoor space, I know Carrie's been having lots of conversations with businesses all across town about some ideas that they can have and what opportunities we can take advantage of. So pop that in the chat box. And those are all of my updates. I guess I do. Kara or Pat, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, this is Pat. Just to reiterate, so the pre-existing establishments that have the outdoor seating, they've had it every year for a number of years. The big change for you is to comply with the social distancing requirement under the COVID restrictions. So everybody has to have the safety standards that we've hand delivered, put online, and what have you. This is an extension of that. So now you're going to be adding additional seating outside, and you have to outline, set up the seating so you maintain the social distancing. With some facilities, it's going to be challenging. Perhaps what may assist you if additional changes occur with sidewalk accommodations, maybe the space will afford you, maybe that space could it be expanded? We're not sure yet, but what you have now is what the select board have approved in the past. So your restriction is just to put you may not be able to put out as many tables and chairs because you have to maintain that social distancing. So revise your safety plans so that it reflects what the people are aware of, what your staff is aware of, and that they're following the health and safety and sanitation standards for the outdoor seating. We're hoping that gets expanded further to allow further accommodation for seating. We anticipate that. That's what many businesses have been expressing to the opening committee, the state opening committee, and to the governor's office. And all my colleagues in boards of health across the state are getting many questions on this. Many restaurants are really looking forward to try to increase their outdoor seating at this point under the restrictions.
Great. So if there aren't any other questions, I'll just turn it over to Pat if you have any other updates.
Yeah, big update. Today, the farmers market opens. So we're very excited about that. Our staff has been working very closely with the market master. They've been outstanding. They've really embraced all the health, safety, and sanitation protocols that we look for. So, this is, again, reflective of our businesses in town. They've been great. It's been a struggle, but they've really worked hard to meet these restrictions that apply to them opening. But the farmers market overseer, they have volunteers. It's going to look a little different, but it's still the farmers market, and I think it's going to bring the start of some normalcy to our Coolidge Corner area. I think it's going to bring some foot traffic to the Coolidge Corner area, so that's all great stuff. But follow the directions, follow the signage. Still, social distancing will apply, and they will limit the amount of customers that are allowed in at a time to comply with the restrictions during this pandemic. But I assure you, we've made sure that everything that can be done is being done, and then some extra, just to make sure it's a safe shopping environment. But we're really excited as the health department to see fresh vegetables and assorted foods getting out there. And I know a lot of people look forward to this event. It is a nice event for them, and it starts today, so get ready.
Great. We have a question from, oh, sorry, Pat, did you have other updates?
Yeah, I was just going to say a few other things. You know, the health department is being looked at for many of these interpretations and guidance for not only restaurants and food facilities, but many things. And right now we're significantly being taxed because all of the children's camps, the governor announced that children's camps can be opening during phase 2, as well as pools. So you could imagine we really have a significant camp population in town. So we're really being, and this was just announced. So we're reading through all the interpretive data, and so anyone, you know, who's online about that, just have patience. We're trying to interpret it so we give you the best guidance as we can. Swimming pools also are going to be allowed. Outdoor pools under phase 2. The restriction with outdoor pools is if they have a jacuzzi as part of the outdoor pool, you can't be using that. That will be phase 3. And indoor pools will most likely be allowed during phase 3. But the outdoor pools, we're getting a lot of questions on that. Condominiums and other outdoor pools, we are allowing them to do repairs, upgrades, whatever mechanical they need to do now. There's no problem with that going into the pool environment. It's a matter of when it gets open to the public. And again, the same protocols will have to be done. You'll have to have the safety standards that everybody has to do, and put together how you're doing the health, safety, sanitation, and hygiene protocols at the pool. Social distancing will be a big one. So we're quite busy with that. Beyond that, ready for any questions that come in?
So we do have a question from Jen Mason over at Curds & Co. in Brookline Village. She said, Pat, can you remind us where to go to get specific requirements for food establishments for open doors? We've been doing all the closed door and are getting ready for customers. I know it includes all the general guidelines from MA, but I know that there is a list that included plexiglass shields. And I think Karen and I just both popped a link to the state's safety checklist in the chat box, but are there other resources?
Yep. So yeah, definitely. That's one of the big pluses that the state put together at the early stages. I said, please put together some resources for the industry. You know, for us to be, as a local board of health, shopping around to see where you can get these things. That's a struggle while we're trying to interpret other standards. So the state really rose to the occasion, and they put a spreadsheet of vendors who sell plexiglass barriers, sanitizers, face coverings, gloves, all the things that you would need. And it's a live document. It gets changed and updated every day. So visit that, and hopefully that'll meet your needs.
We have another question, which Jen Mason says, thanks for your answer. And then we have another question from an anonymous attendee that Karen might be able to respond to. But the comment is, I would imagine that if farmers markets can open, it would be appropriate for small business to also have a small sidewalk display.
Yeah, the farmers market has a license with the town, and we would be glad to help you apply for one as well.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what that question was. What was that?
It's about having, about retailers being able to have sidewalk displays. And we've done that with the Coolidge Corner merchants, you know, kind of thinking creatively about that. So we can help if you let us know who you are.
Excellent. All right. Well, we don't have any more questions in the Q&A box. If people have comments, I actually do have a question that Melissa Tapper-Goldman from the Village Works in Brookline Village had asked regarding, so they're a co-working space, and she had questions about what expectations were for the frequency of cleaning their shared restrooms.
Yeah, unfortunately, the state guidance documents did not give us a good matrix on that. So the short answer from your health department is it really depends on the frequency of use and what the size of your population is. At the first stage, now offices will be allowed to be 25% of capacity, so that's much less, and I would assume much less restaurant toilet facility visits. And as it increases, I would suspect that that would be done. My recommendation would be, to have somebody on staff to go through. You should be going through at least morning, midday, and later in the day. What I really like is going through every hour. Have somebody. We like to see our restaurants do it. You probably see in restaurants now and offices can implement this because it also assures the users that toilet facility is being visited. They put on the back of the door, checked, date and time. And if it's looked at every hour, they're checking to make sure the sanitizers are there, the hot water's still running. You have your paper towels and all the things we look for good hand washing and sanitation. And I can't stress the importance. Hand washing is the key element in combating this, among other things, but hand washing is huge. Don't fall to always thinking sanitizer is the answer. CDC and everyone agrees hand washing with soap and water is the best for public health protection. So those and part of all the guidance documents have stressed the having accessible toilet facilities. So keep on top of them. It's very important. And if it was Pat Maloney's establishment, I'd say I'd have a staff member visiting that hourly, just a walkthrough, quick, see what's going on and making sure it's stocked and wiping things down as necessary.
Okay, thank you. I can relay that back to Melissa. So David Lashinsky, I hate to put you on the spot, but I know you had some questions and I had said I would try to get back to you and the week got away from me, but we have Pat Maloney here now. So I don't know if you're interested in asking a couple of questions in real time.
Morning, everybody. I can say that the retail community in Coolidge Corner has been working very hard behind the scenes to make sure that we are preparing our establishments, putting in place procedures that will keep both our staffs and our customers safe, and also be welcoming to the resumption of shopping on a larger basis. I can emphasize from Lucia's very personal comments last week that this is pain that's felt by all of us, and it's a real struggle. So, for instance, Pat, when I hear about saying, okay, if I'm going to have a small business and I now have to make sure to task somebody extra with cleaning, it's like yet one more thing that makes it much more difficult. Not to say that this isn't important and that needs to be done, but simply that it's just one more scheduling and funding challenge that has to be met. There were definitely a number of questions that I had, and a lot of them have to do with guidelines for occupancy, number of people that can come into the store, what that actually means. I did see something from the state that seemed to indicate that if we had less than, it was either 1,000 or 2,000 square feet, we could do the maximum of 8 people in the space or 40% of occupancy, whichever was greater. I don't know if that was a piece of guidance that you saw or could comment on, but that almost says, I would say in many of our businesses, it's not likely we're going to have more than 8 people in at a time anyway. I don't know, Pat, if you want to say anything about that.
Yeah, I don't know if that's written in stone at this point, but I will say all the phase-ins, you can see we did it from the grocery stores to the hardware stores. At first, you know, they had right now they're limited to the 40% of allowing people to go inside and shop. So they're trying to control the amount of people into a space. So that's what I anticipate. And I think the smaller stores, it shouldn't be an issue, except if you're having people who are waiting outside. Then you have to think about how can I control that, similar to what you see Trader Joe's and other facilities have done, is they have the lines outside. Some use chalk, some use tape. You know, I'm hoping you have a nice line outside, so a lot of people want to come in and visit your business. So when that stage does evolve, you will have some sort of initial restriction on how many that can come in, and you watch it and you work with it. The big thing is people are used to this. So I'm hoping it's going to make it easier for all the businesses.
That is one thing that's true. People are definitely much more used to it. I know that for the small spaces, I mean, there certainly is a desire to keep people at the required distance, but it's also something that is quite impossible, especially if you're passing by each other. And certainly it appeared in some of the policies that came out or procedures, a nod to that and saying keep it reasonable, you know, as in if you can do it, do it.
You know what helps in that regard? I've been seeing it, and we have to remind some establishments. I was just in a pharmacy that they need to do this because their aisles are too narrow. Putting a direction, having a traffic flow, so that person's coming in, there's a particular traffic flow, and it doesn't cause them to go back and forth as much. So putting something, you know, showing an arrow saying this is the flow, I think would help also. That would be a plus.
I would say that both Disney and IKEA are masters of that traffic flow.
Yes, they are. But it applies to a small facility. I could picture, you know, just saying, okay, go to the left, work around this way, whatever way you want to do it, clockwise, counterclockwise.
On this topic, oh, sorry. We did have a question from Jen Mason. Can we put stickers on the sidewalk for outside lines if it's not technically our property, as long as it's not permanent?
Yeah, I mean, under the circumstances, I don't, you know, DPW has been great. They've been very cooperative. Just, you know, yeah, I don't see an issue with that. Stickers, chalks, stuff like that. I know tape has been used, so sure. I think we wouldn't hassle about that.
I know we use painter's tape because that will come off. It'll come off the sidewalk pretty easily, but also has surprisingly lasts a long time out there, which is great.
What I'll do is I'll make sure I communicate with our highways, public streets director, and just advise him that we may be seeing some of that, and it's just under these restrictions right now that it'll be fine.
Okay. I know there were some other questions regarding, and thank you, Kara, for pointing out the cafe table program. That is something we have been discussing as a way both of providing some ambiance for customers that do happen to want to walk by, as well as potentially a way for them to sit and wait comfortably to get into an establishment, and putting those out spread apart at the requisite distances. Now, one question that came up though was, what about cleaning and sanitization? Is that any more or less different than, let's say, a public bench or in a park? Is that something we need to pay attention to a little bit more frequently?
And I'll take that one on. I as it was being mentioned, I'm thinking I can hear the calls already. They're not cleaning or sanitizing it. I think a simple wipe down of the contact surfaces, not the whole thing, but the tabletop and the seats, they don't have arms. So I think that will be adequate. Not, you know, after every use, but have some sort of system to do that would be advisable. Because I just know we do get the calls, and citizens are concerned and they want to be assured. So I think it being outdoors is a plus. It being exposed to the sun is a plus. But then wiping it down with a cloth that has a sanitizer already built into it is dynamite.
Okay, great. I'm sure I had some other questions, but I will pass them along later on.
Thank
We're
you.
having another review meeting right after this, so there'll be more that come up.
Excellent. And thank you. I know you put you on the spot, so thank you for your questions. So we've got about 9 minutes left during sort of the regular meeting time. Are there any other questions, or do people want to make comments? And if you want to comment, feel free to raise your hand. And if not, I'll throw it back to Raul.
I just want to make an announcement really quick from Brookline Interactive Group. We are going to be doing a car conferral for Brookline High School students on Sunday from 12 to 5. And we're trying to figure out a way to do that live. So you might be able to watch it on brooklineinteractive.org/live. But Pat, I don't know if you or somebody else is coming out from the health department, but we're looking forward to working with you to make sure that that's a 100% safe process for our 475 graduates in the class of 2020. And I do want to encourage business owners, just on behalf of those students, to do something festive. Put signs in your window, and just remember these kids have achieved something important, and it's a difficult time for students. So we want to make sure that we're just giving them some community love. So if there's anything folks can do to make them feel the mood on Sunday as they're driving by the high school and as they lead up to it, that would be awesome.
Yeah, the health commissioner will be there, and he's worked very closely with the school department, and they've been outstanding with meeting all the criteria we suggested they put together. I will say this, they proposed 8 different scenarios of how to do graduation, and this is the one that we were most comfortable with. And lo and behold, this is going to be the state standard. So what we put together here, and really what the school department put together and we tweaked, is what they're using throughout the state as many schools are using as this, driving through the area, being recognized, teachers at the end, celebrating, waving, holding signs.
Yeah.
I'd like to say great minds think alike. So, but yeah, it's going to be a unique event, and I think very special, a festive event. And we feel bad for the students, but they're going to have a unique celebration here, and they'll always remember this. So this will be when they have their reunions, they'll talk about it. I know, I can see it. So.
I just want to let folks know too, we're doing the car conferral on Sunday, and then we're going to have a virtual celebration on June 20th. So the virtual celebration, we're big is editing all of the kind of 20 different pieces of digital assets together into one package. And then we'll do a live YouTube premiere for that official virtual high school graduation. But we are going to be getting 475 kids through 2 per minute in front of the high school as they get out of their cars and walk across the virtual stage, if you will. So yeah, it'd be great to see the community come out and support, and just let them know that we're there and that we see them this weekend as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. And thank you to Big for everything that you're doing for the Brookline community right now. On the pre-show chat, Raul was trying to figure out how we could properly acknowledge everything that Big has been doing. And I think we missed the window for a formal award, but I'm sure there will be lots of informal shows of gratitude to Big.
Thank you. And just want to encourage anybody who is part of any other groups. I know Rotary's gotten in touch with us about their breakfast. We've worked with the chamber. We've been working with Tommy. But if there's other folks who feel that they have something to say, we want to hear it. If you're doing any kind of special thing right now as a business, please make sure you get a little slate into us. All you need is a graphic and some text. And we can put that together for you to promote your business in the reopening whatever you want to let the community know about. We do have 19,000 cable subscribers, and we do post things out to social media as well. So please just let me know, info@brooklineinteractive.org.
Thank you, Kathy. So I see Elias's hand just went up. So I think it's going to go Elias. Kara has an update, and then we'll go back to Raul.
I just want to update on Rotary breakfast. Unfortunately, it's not going to be on the 21st like we were hoping to have it, because we couldn't secure permits fast enough. So we're still planning it. It's for the date to be determined. I'll keep you updated. Thank you.
Thank you, Elias. Kara?
Great. So I'm going to repeat something that Liz Linder has in the Q&A just to make sure everybody hears this. She has been working on a documentary project, and the photos that she's taken, she's kind of shared some sneak peek previews of business owners as well as town of Brookline workers going on what we're all doing in the conditions we're working under right now. They're absolutely amazing. And she's put her email in the Q&A studio at lizlinder.com. And if any business wants to have their portrait taken to share your story, it would be great for you to participate. And I see that Brookline Interactive and Liz have already connected, which is great. And we were speaking with Debbie Miller at the Chamber of Commerce yesterday to start dispersing these photos to the community. So you'll start to see business owners' photos on the SUFA signs and perhaps in some of our social media posts. One thing that we're hearing broadly from different groups is a very strong recommendation for businesses to use photos of what their business is going to look like under these new conditions, because it helps customers and potential customers kind of have a preview of like, okay, this is going to be a new reality, but it's something that they can handle because they kind of see it first. The other reason it's been promoted as a good practice for retailers and restaurants is because humans react to images of other humans. So anytime you have a post of not just, a checklist of what you're doing, but rather a person showing with a mask or showing, in other ways, how those best practices are happening, it automatically makes customers feel safer. But more importantly, it automatically reconnects your customers with you as the business owner. And when you see these photos from Liz, you'll understand what I'm talking about with that strong connection. You immediately want to go out and see those people and shop in their businesses. Secondly, Hadassah Margolis, who is a town resident, has generously offered to all businesses free masks. So these are the cloth masks that are being made for as part of the volunteer effort. She realizes that businesses are struggling and concerned about customers coming in without a mask, how to deal with that. And she's offering that. She knows that many of you have supplies of masks that you might be offering customers if they happen to forget a mask. But she's also offering those cloth masks. If anybody wants to take her up on that offer, we will include her information in our business reopening page, and I'll try to get it on this chat window really quick. And then finally, I just wanted to let people know that the Paycheck Protection Program is still going on. So if anybody hasn't yet applied, there are banks there is still funding available, and there are banks still processing those. Just last night at the federal level, both houses of Congress agreed to loosen some of the restrictions. So for both existing loan holders as well as new ones, you'll want to stay tuned to that. Hopefully it'll be signed and then it will go into action, and we'll send out links to that. But basically the highlights are that it lowers the minimum portion of the PPP loan so that rather than 75% of it being for payroll, it's now 60%. It also extends the time the loan can cover from 8 weeks to 24 weeks. And I believe for new loans, it extends the loan from 2 years to 5 years. And there's also some, I think, very helpful language about if your full-time employees don't come back, how that loan forgiveness will be more flexible. So more details to come, but I wanted to highlight it here so you look out for that news once it's signed, but it did pass both houses last night. That's all I have, and I'm going to try to get Hadassah's email in the chat.
Alrighty then. Thanks all for a great call. Just before we go, just a couple of other just quick shout outs and an announcement. We heard from all of our panelists today, except we've got, I just wanted to shout out Ann Myers, who's also the co-chair of the Economic Development Advisory Board, as well as a member of the Small Business Development Committee, who's always helping us see the big picture around finances and economic development here in Brookline. And so appreciate you continuing to be with us on these calls. And also to Caitlin Starr, who is at the Office of Diversity, Inclusion, and Community Relations here in Brookline, who's always making sure that we're focused on equity and inclusion as part of everything we do as well. And of course, it's to Pat Maloney, who we've got Pat. Pat came out of retirement to help do this work, and it has been a tremendous amount of work, and the quality of Pat's work speaks for itself, I think, and you've seen him on many of these calls. So we'll continue to have Pat as long as he's around with us for the next few weeks. But just wanted to say first of many thanks to Pat for your service to the town, coming out, supporting us in this way. It's been absolutely tremendous. So thank you. And then finally, hey, we've got an election on Tuesday. We've got a town election on Tuesday. Mr. Jeff Nutting, who's come out of his own retirement, by the way, to come serve in the town clerk's office to help us out a little bit. Linda Goldberg, our assistant town clerk, have let us know this past week at our select board meeting that 4,500 ballots have already been received through vote by mail in Brookline. That's more than obviously we've ever had through vote by mail, but it's also that number is already more than many past elections we've had in Brookline in terms of votes cast. But we're not done yet. So if you have a ballot in hand that you haven't filled out or that you haven't sent in the mail, please put it in the mail immediately. That ballot needs to arrive by June 9th. It needs to be opened on June 9th and to be counted. If it arrives after June 9th at 8 p.m., it's not going to be counted. Polling places will be open. There have been some changes. I recommend you go to the town clerk's office to see what some of those changes to a few polling places have been. We've consolidated some polling places for the safety of our poll workers, as well as some of the residents who live in some of these polling places. But the polls will be open from noon until 8 p.m. They won't be open in the morning like usual. So we've made some changes to the hours as well. They'll be open from 12 noon until 8 p.m. So if you haven't got that ballot in yet, it's a little bit too late at this point to request the ballot. It won't get to you in time and then get back in time to be counted on June 9th. So if you have one already, send it in. If you still want to participate in this election, and if you're a Brookline resident, I really hope you will, you can show up to the polls on June 9th between noon and 8 and cast your vote. There is a competitive election for select board. There are also other races on the ballot, like school committee, library trustee. Most of the town meeting member races are contested as well. And so I really encourage you to look up information on this election and to participate. Our vote is our voice, and so I hope you'll be there for that. And that's it. We will be back with you next Thursday. The sun's coming out more and more. I think things are starting to look sunny, but you guys, looks like you all are still dealing with a lot of the pain about this economic hardship we're dealing with will last beyond the health crisis that we're in. As I mentioned before, we'll continue to be with you to talk through to push through policy that makes things better on your end. And so keep showing up and we'll keep being here. Thanks so much, everybody. Talk to you soon.